We are now live on the internet. And Susanna, I see you've joined us as well. Would you like to do a microphone test?
Yes, please. How is that?
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Nina, I see you've joined us as well. Would you like to do a microphone test?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, since we're live on the internet and it's 1:56, I'll conclude the microphone testing. Thank you very much to everyone. Is there anyone in the room that has not done a microphone test that would like to do one?
Good afternoon. This is Moretta.
I can hear you. Thank you very much, Moretta.
You're
And this is
welcome.
Sherry Terrell.
Ah, Sherry, I hear you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
You hear me? This is Vinod Sharma.
I can hear you, Vinod. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is Margarita Rodriguez. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I can hear you, Margarita.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Edwin Poon from BHSD.
Hi, Edwin. I can hear you. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'd like to do a mic check.
Hello, I can hear you, Dave.
Great, thank you very much, Colin.
Thank you.
Hi, I'd like to do a mic check.
Is that Charlie?
No.
Oh, Mark. I
Yep.
see you there, Mark. And I see Charlie as well.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Mark. And Charlie, would you like to do a microphone test while I got you there?
Charlie Foss is here from San Jose State.
I can see you and I can hear you. Thank you very much.
Abe Andrade's mic check.
Yes, Abe, I can hear you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have 2 p.m., so I would say let's get the meeting into order. So first of all, welcome everybody. My name is Supervisor Otto Lee. I'm honored to chair the Finance Government Operations Committee along with our supervisor, Cindy Chavez, today. With both supervisors present, we now have a quorum. So going to item number 2 on the agenda, which is public comment. This item is reserved for the members of the public to address the committee on any items not on this agenda. Any public who wish to address the committee on items not on the agenda should request to speak at this time. Speakers are limited to following: 3 minutes if 5 or fewer persons would like to address the committee. And so we'll see how many people would be there. The law does not permit the committee action or extended discussion on any items not on the agenda, except under special circumstances. If the committee action is requested, the committee may place the matter on the future agenda. Statements that require response may be referred to staff for reply in writing. Clerk, would you please let us know how many speakers we have for public comment?
There are no requests to speak, Mr. Chair.
Okay, well, that made it easy. So we'll go ahead and move on to item number 3, which is to approve the consent calendar and changes to the committee's agenda. So items removed from the consent calendar will be considered at the end of the regular agenda for discussion. The committee will also add items on the regular agenda to the consent calendar as needed. Notice to the public is that there is no separate discussion of the consent calendar items, and the recommended actions are voted on in one motion. If an item is approved and the consent vote, the specific action recommended by staff is adopted. Members of the public who wish to address the committee on consent calendar items should comment on this item. And first of all, do we have any speakers?
No request to speak, Mr. Chair.
Not yet. Okay, good. All right. Let me see. So Supervisor Chavez, hi. I have the following changes to agenda by adding item number 5, item number 14, item number 15 and 16 to the consent calendar. And I would also like to actually move item 11 out of order to be able to hear it before 10 due to some staffing constraints.
Thank you. If I could, I'm also very comfortable with item 13. This is our government fellows program. So I'm fine. I thought the report was very thoughtful. I don't know if that's one that you have any concerns about.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do believe that 13 is fine. I do have some comments I would like to make if time is appropriate later on that. Do you have any other changes?
I'm also comfortable with adding 5 as well.
Okay, so I have 5. I said 14, 15, and 16. Are those okay with you?
5. I'm sorry, say that again.
Yeah, 14, 15, and 16 for the
And
consent.
13.
Yes, and 13, correct.
Thank you. And then 5. And then I would like to pull item 17.
Okay, you're gonna pull 17. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so let me just repeat what the proposal here is. The motion is to add item number 5, 13, 14, 15, and 16 onto the consent calendar. And we are pulling item 17 to regular hearing. And on item number 13, we'd like to make the following comments. So last year, the county has received over 120 applications for the program, while this year the report notes that only 45 applications were evaluated in total. I can certainly appreciate the perspective that since many internship and fellowship programs were not in operation last year, 2021, of course, was a bit of an anomaly when it comes to county's volume of applications. Having said that, I still think it is critical that our county does everything we can to provide more placement opportunities to students who may be interested in the program. It was explained to me that we currently have the capacity to accommodate the equivalent of 8 full-time fellows, and I would like to see that number certainly increase for our county of our size. And I would like to request for the administration to provide an off-agenda report around identifying the funds necessary to help expand the program to accommodate the equivalent of, say, up to 20 full-time fellows for the next year's program. Is that acceptable?
That would be acceptable to me as, and I'm happy to make that a motion. The one recommendation I would make is that the report back come back as part of our budget hearings.
Great, perfect, exactly. This has a budget impact. Okay, great. I have a motion from Supervisor Chavez, and I'll second it. And we have no public speaker, right, Clerk?
That's correct.
Okay, good. If that's the case, we'll go and take the vote.
Vice Chairperson Chavez
Yes.
and Chairperson Lee.
Yes, as well.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. So moving to item number 4, which is to forward the recommendation to Board of Supervisors to approve referral to administration and county council to bring recommendations to the Board of Supervisors to enter an exclusive negotiating agreement with the San Jose State University for the development of the Legacy Center and track at the county fairgrounds. Okay. Supervisor Chavez, since this is, I believe, your item, I'll go ahead and defer to you on this item. Do you have anything you would like to speak on?
Yes, thank you. So this item is an item to consider and move to the Board of Supervisors meeting in April, a referral seeking preliminary analysis from the administration and county council on a potential ENA, an exclusive negotiating agreement with San Jose State University for the development of the Legacy Track and Center at the county fairgrounds. We have representatives here from San Jose State University to present on this item. And what I'd like to do is turn it over to them, and then, and I'll introduce them in a moment, and then come back, hear from the public, and then hear from staff, and then I'll make some additional comments. So we have representatives from San Jose State University. I'm very excited to see here Jennifer Maluda, Senior Director of Community Government Relations at San Jose State University, and Charlie Foss, Vice President of Administration and Finance at San Jose State University, and they will provide an overview on this project, which I am very excited about because it has great significance to the history of our county in sports, civil rights, and social justice.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I am going to share my screen if that's okay.
Please, thank you.
Just bear with me while I get that going here. Get the right screen up. Okay, here we go. Thank you, Chair and members of the committee and staff for having us be here today. My name is Jennifer Maluda, and I am here with Charlie Foss, who the supervisor just introduced, and we are here to talk to you about the Speed City Legacy Project and the Spirit of 68 Track and Field facility. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about San Jose State. I know most of you are very familiar with San Jose State, but I can't help but take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about us. We were founded in 1857. We are the oldest public university in the West. We are one of 23 campuses in the California State University system. We consider ourselves one of the most efficient in the CSU. We occupy 19 city blocks with over 36,000 students and with 4,000 employees. And with that number, I would say that Charlie likes to say that we are the largest employer in San Jose State until Google comes. And until then, we are the largest employer, but it also makes us an anchor institution in Santa Clara County. And we recently conducted an economic impact report. And what it found was that San Jose State has a 1.3 billion economic impact in the years 2018 to 2019. But here, what we are here to talk about, there we go, is we're here to talk about the Speed City Legacy Project and the need to honor that history and continue the conversation around the fight for human rights, for equity, and for justice. And this project will honor the full history, the good and the bad, which is a really key point that we have been reminded of about the fight for equity and for human rights. This is the project that really gets people excited. It's one of those where you say one sentence and people, they're instantly more intrigued, they're excited, they want to hear more about it. And this is a once in a lifetime proposal for San Jose State. And the reason is this is the first year that the CSU is, in all of our memories, is allowing one-time funding requests independent of the chancellor's office, and that we're able to go after that, to go forward with that at the state level. And if we can enter into, and this is the first time this project has been able to get this far for that reason, and if we can enter into an ENA with the county, as we understand it, it will allow us to pursue this collaboration and the one-time funding request from the state. I'm going to talk just a little bit about the center itself, and then I'm going to turn it over to Charlie. The center, so the Speed City Legacy Center, they're definitely, they're at the hip, they're joined. Will include a gathering space, storage. There's some functional pieces, right? So there's storage, there's meeting room, but we'll also include, and this is the key piece, is that interactive educational design to share the Speed City legacy and history of sports and activism. This space could be used by the neighbors, by community, by the county, and even by our amazing track and field alumni, the luminaries that stood on those, stood at the Olympics and have created that moment in time in the racial justice, pursuit for racial justice. And now I'm going to turn it over to Charlie to talk about the Spirit of 68 track and field facility.
Thanks, Jen. Appreciate it. And Supervisor Chavez, thank you for inviting us here. And this is a conversation that has been going on, but hasn't been going on, and needs to go, and needs to proceed. And as Jen said, there's positives and there's negatives, and we have to embrace all of that as you go. Tommy Smith, John Carlos, they're larger than life, standing in the middle of San Jose State's campus, and they stood on those podiums down in Mexico City. We want that same spirit. We want that same education level for all of our Bay Area community to continue to happen. And to do that through the Legacy Center is phenomenal. To do that and allow young people, whether that's San Jose State athletes, whether it's the community of San Jose, Santa Clara County, and the Bay Area, to partake in the same activities, the same running lanes, the same activities that Tommy and John and many others took part in, with a regulation track, facilities that youth can happen, clinics can happen, neighborhood exercising goes on. I happen to be the chair of the San Jose Sports Authority. We just finished a meeting an hour ago talking about bringing the senior games, which is 14,000 senior athletes coming to the Bay Area, being able to put them on a track and field events, something like this down at the fairgrounds would be absolutely phenomenal. To have first-class facilities that are open to all, with lights, with and obviously with timing for lights and everything, so it's not impacting the neighborhood, but being that engaging area. And then, to me, the next slide here, Jen, is really the important slide that what we're talking about is how all this stuff comes together. And so we have this unique opportunity of going to the state and getting these dollars from the state, but partnering with the county, being down at the fairgrounds, utilizing that area, our rich history at San Jose State, working with the city, working with the state, it all comes together. And really the fairgrounds is at the center of this. And this is kind of one of those projects that I don't want to quite go as a cornerstone, but what a great initial set of building blocks to build around and to make those fairgrounds something that we're all going to be extremely proud of decades and decades from now. So that's our piece. We appreciate you guys hearing from us. We think this is a phenomenal opportunity, and we're happy to entertain questions.
Thank you. And Chairperson Lee, I just want to see if there are any public comments before I make.
Sure. Okay, let's see. Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak at this time?
There are no requests to speak, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Supervisor Chavez, do you have any question? I don't have any question on this item.
No, I just wanted to make an observation. For those of us who've lived here a long time and know San Jose State, one of the things that we know is that there was a lot of heartbreak when the track and field were demolished. And one of the challenges with that, even beforehand, is that we didn't have a lot of public investment in that site. And this is actually an opportunity to remedy, I think, a great wrong. And as part of that, I just want to make an observation that when we think about, Tommy Smith and John Carlos, we now see that moment as, with, I think, rosy colored glasses, which is that, they became international leaders of a movement overnight. But the truth of the matter is that everybody who participated and stuck up for themselves got almost, I mean, they were blackballed from athletics. They weren't allowed to coach. They were really looked upon as villains. And we have an opportunity, I think, as a community to remedy that and to do it in a way that's very respectful of the neighborhood that surrounds it. Because by putting this track, at this location, it's also not just close to San Jose State, which I love, close to Budwinter Field, which I love, but it's also in the heart of one of the poorest parts of our entire county. And so what I'm hoping that comes out of this is that we can bring this to the board so that we can send a joint letter to the state and to encourage them to invest in this facility, really what I think is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I'd like us not to miss it. So I'm asking for support and also asking staff, given I know how many other busy things they have, to prioritize discussions with San Jose State so that we're better able to answer the board's questions on this so that we can move forward with a formal request for support from the state of California. That would be my motion.
Okay, and I will second that. If no further discussion, please vote.
Vice Chairperson Chavez,
Yes.
Chairperson Lee.
Aye as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
now,
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, Jennifer.
yes, thank you
Thanks,
for the
Abe.
great presentation.
Abe, I know you're here too, Abe. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our calendar agenda, we have item number 6, which is a report from the Technology Services and Solutions Department relating to in-house home supportive services push notification system. And I do see a few staff here, and you can identify yourself.
Yes, my name is Sandy Steer. I am the IT Director for Social Services Agency.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann Warren, the Director of the Department of Aging and Adult Services.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Let's see. On this issue, is there any presentation that you would like to provide, or it's all in the report?
Everything has been submitted.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All right, let me see. Let me go back to the public. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak to this item?
None at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And Supervisor Chavez, do you have any questions on this item?
No, I'm happy to take your lead, Supervisor Lee.
Thank you. On this one, I understand and agree that you're prioritizing projects based on the need and urgency. So I would, however, like to understand if why this, I guess, online application wasn't made a top priority, given that it does impact the community, the fact that the other counties has already done a certain way isn't necessarily present for not improving the system. And if this was something already on your list, just further down, what I would like to see is to see if there's any way how we could get this done online. So if you could just explain a little bit to me, I appreciate it.
Well, I'm happy to speak about the project prioritization process.
Yes.
So throughout the year, the TSS representatives work with the department leadership to identify projects that they need to have delivered to improve services, often for compliance reasons or mandates. And that process results in a prioritized list of projects, and which has been very carefully vetted by the program leadership. So IHSS projects are part of that process, and this project is currently number 5 on the pending projects list, meaning approved but not yet started, based upon the priorities of the Social Services Agency.
Okay, all right. So since this is actually further down the list, like you say, it's number 5, I certainly would like to see if there's any way we could sped the process up, because obviously it's not a mandate, right, like required by the laws and whatnot, so certainly not have a higher priority. But at the same time, certainly there are our clients who's using a program could certainly be served better by having this application be done online. And I certainly will help support this effort. And again, I would like to see some movement on the needle since development takes some time. So my question is that a resource issue that we could ask TSS to provide additional resource to make that happen?
The resources that we have at our disposal within the vertical that I oversee, which is the Social Services Agency Technology Group, we have limited resources that can provide this level of support, this particular type of development. So in terms of allocating those resources, right now we are allocating resources primarily to CalSAW's implementation, and then looking at the projects that you see on the list that I submitted earlier as to what comes next. And when you look at that list, although this particular project is number 5, some of the projects will go in parallel. So they're not purely sequential. They are often going in parallel. But development projects are unique. Not all projects are development, but this one is. And so it is very much based upon resources that are finite. So if we were to have additional resources that we don't have currently, that could change our ability to deliver this more quickly, but not necessarily a significant impact because of the level of complexity of this project and the environment that we're developing in.
Right. So I certainly would like to hear the fact that it's going in parallel, not serial, because I don't believe you need to finish the other projects first before I can start this. It's just a matter of not having sufficient people or resources to get this started. Am I correct?
That is somewhat correct, but again, this particular project is in a fairly complex environment. So not all developers have the skill set to engage in this particular project. But when you look at 1 through 5, several of these will go in parallel because if they are not a development project, they're going to go in parallel with a development project.
Right. Okay. So I guess maybe we are going to have a budget workshop coming up soon for the next year's budget. So I think maybe we continue this conversation at that time, and if we need more additional resources to do that, we could talk about that at that time. Sounds fair?
Okay.
Supervisor Lee, I'd like to chime in if I can too, please. Terry Posley, who's our IHSS program manager, is here as well.
Oh, great.
I also would like to point out that we do have manual systems in place. So, people are getting their need. We are doing the best of our ability to keep applications going forward, and we are reaching out to people. We are monitoring them manually. And eventually, yes, it will be great, but we do understand there are other priorities. So in the meantime, we are working around to ensure services are given to clients as quickly as possible.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, certainly we need to continue the same type of outreach and all that. But I think sometimes if we could get these forms done online, electronically, certainly it would save everybody time down the road instead of having a lot of labor involved in trying to get this information. So the idea of having this develop, I think at the long end, is not only support the client, but also help us in terms of saving staff time in the future as well. So again, we're all trying to make the process move in the future and make it easier, accessible for everybody. So, okay, thank you very much. And that's all I have on this one. And so do I have a motion to accept the report?
So moved. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll second it. And go ahead and take the vote.
Vice Chairperson Chavez.
Yes.
Chairperson Lee.
Yes, as well. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to item number 7, which is a report from the Social Services Agency, Department of Aging and Adult Services, relating to the bi-monthly in-home service social support services call center report. And I believe we're still Mary Ann, right? On this one?
And Terry.
And Terry, yes. Hi. Yes, we can see your
sorry,
slide.
Hi, I was having trouble with my screen. Sorry about that.
No, we can see you fine. Go ahead, please.
Okay, good. Hello, I'm Terry Posley, Program Manager for IHSS. I'm here to present our bi-monthly report for IHSS's call data. So this next slide shows concisely our phone data from the weeks of December 7th through February 7th. And in the column named call volume, this is defined as the number of phone calls IHSS received that week. And as you can see, we generally receive over 1,000 calls per week, the highest showing about 1,555 calls received the week of January 31st. And there's a reason for that. I'll get to it in a minute. The column named abandoned calls represents when callers hang up before the call agent has had a chance to answer the call. And although these numbers do appear to be high, what most often happens is the callers hang up and they'll call back again, ensuring that their matter is attended to. So this unfortunately means the same callers are calling more than once in the same day to speak to someone live.
Right.
The average wait time, that's defined as the time a caller waits to speak to a call agent. So in early 2020, our wait times were the lowest, around 2 or 3 minutes long. And once we had disaster service workers activated in 2020 through 2021, our wait times went back up again because many of the call agents were activated as DSWs. But you can see where our average wait times column ranged anywhere from 4.5 to 19 minutes long. The longest wait times of around 19 minutes happened around the time the state sent the HERO pandemic payments, the week around January 31st. To providers, which caused an increase in phone calls inquiring about their payments and the status of their payments. The column showing the average number of call agents represents the average number of call agents answering phones during that particular week. So the call agents is higher than normal, and this has been the case since really March 2020 when we closed our lobby. So we opened our lobby back in September of last year, but our lobby traffic has been consistently very low. And because of this, we didn't need all of our 4 lobby receptionists at the windows to address lobby visitors. So what we did was we put those receptionists on the phones, which is why you see that we have an average of 10 or 11 call agents. We normally don't have that many. The column showing the average calls in queue represents the calls that are waiting to be answered by call agents. So they're essentially on hold, waiting their turn to speak to someone live. And because we have a higher than average number of call agents, this average calls in queue is considerably a low number than we typically experience. And the column identifying the number of disaster service workers represents the total DSWs in the entire IHSS program, not just the call agents. So this would include social workers, clerical, payroll. And from December 6th through the week of February 7th, we had 17 DSWs in the entire IHSS program deployed. But as of today, we have 6 DSWs, 2 of which are call agents. The column showing pending referrals represents the number of IHSS applications that are waiting to be assigned to social workers. So the pending referrals are with support staff. We call them program services aides, who are collecting demographic information, including the required form that must be signed by a doctor stating that the applicant needs IHSS in order to remain safely in their homes. So we have about 6 support staff who are managing these pending referrals, and we receive anywhere from 10 to 40 new referrals every day. And this amount of pending referrals has been pretty consistent over the past few years. So we get about anywhere between 500 and 700 a month new referrals. So that concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have for me at this time.
Thank you, Terry, for the information. So first of all, is there anybody in public who would like to speak on this item?
No request to speak, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And Supervisor Chavez, do you have any question on this one?
Yeah, I do actually. So you know, this has been an area that I know has been, honestly, I feel like we played hot potato with it for years. And so I think we have to figure out a way to stop doing that. And so really, and we've had everything from concerns about misclassification in terms of who's doing what to getting the phones answered on time and the like. So one, I just want to say, I really appreciate being able to look at the numbers. It's hard to do because you want everything to be 100%. And so I just want to say we're starting from a place of transparency, and I think that's the right direction. What I want to recommend is that we get a really concrete work plan that gets us from where we are today to being able to keep your head above water. And here's what I mean by that. I know that with the DSW workers coming back, that will make a significant difference. But we were having these problems before COVID. So what I really want to better understand as part of the budget process is what would it take to level set this work in two ways. One, the pending referrals, like really being able to get caught up on those, because at that length of time, I mean, the length of time it takes to get those resolved, we could have folks literally pass away because it's taken us so long to get to them. And then second, I think we want to figure out how we get to 0 abandoned calls and a much shorter wait time. And frankly, a system that says you're going to be waiting for this long and you can leave a voicemail, or, you know, a system that actually works. And so I don't know what the system is like now. Can people do that? Can you leave a voicemail and then get a call back?
We do have the voicemail technology, and unfortunately in early 2020, we disabled that voicemail feature because we didn't have the staff to manage the voicemails. And until we get our last 2 DSWs back, we won't be ready to activate it just yet. So people are not able to leave a voicemail at this time. And in the past, when they were able to, we noticed that call wait times dipped slightly. It worked. But what we saw in the data was that people were still abandoning the calls. They were still calling again, and then they would leave a voicemail. And so by the time that we responded to the voicemail, the matter had already been resolved by the call agent. So it works somewhat.
So, so here's what I would like to recommend, and I don't know if Dr. Smith is on with us, so I don't want to.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, great. Thanks, Dr. Smith. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't, that I could get your feedback on this. Yeah, this has been really going on since I got here. I think it's just gotten worse. And so, and I recognize with the DSWs coming back, that's going to be wonderful. But I'm actually concerned about staffing and also whether or not we're using the right phone system in general. I don't have you might have a stronger opinion about that, but I really don't. I'm really thinking about the work that we were able to do with the CAN Center, and it did require some pretty significant software changes in terms of how we were responding to these calls. But what I want to ask is, if as part of budget, you can look at the overall staffing for the folks who go through and assess the pending referrals, and also to take a look at the staffing for the call center, both the number of people and the time that they're actually available at the call center. One thing that we learned from the CAN Center is that on some days we had enough people, they were just there at the wrong times. And so I think really a robust sort of approach to getting us to, to no abandoned calls and people waiting a more reasonable amount of time. I don't know what that would be, and that the pending referrals, that we're in a much more manageable place. And again, I don't want to tell you what those numbers are. I'd like you to come back and tell us what they are. But I do think, Dr. Smith, that during budget, we ought to take a look at this because it's been such a chronic problem. Or what we ought to be doing is getting an outside assessment for them so that they have the help they need to, I guess, Terry, Dr. Smith, let me start with you, and then I don't want to put Terry on the spot, but you, I don't mind.
Thanks. I think we'll take your advice and get a report back to the board during budget. As you know, we're tight for this budget, and there are a lot of high priorities. So we have to make a recommendation that considers all of those, but I, off the top of my head, can't give you answers right now. So give us some time to sit down with the department and get a better answer for you in budget.
Thank you. And here are the 4 questions I would love to get answered. One is, what changes need to happen? This is broad, to get our wait times below 5 minutes consistently with no abandoned calls. really, I mean, I know there will be a handful, but let's say that's 10 abandoned calls. And that our pending referrals are, weekly. I think, are the pending referrals done at a monthly clip or every other week?
It's every other week. We've been tracking it.
Yeah, I think that we should be in the 50 range for pending referrals, not in the 190 or 211 range. And again, I'm just picking goals. You might say that there are some different goals you want. So I want to understand staffing and whether or not we have the appropriate phone technology in place. So either call takers or referral reviewers, and that we're looking at the schedule. And so I'd like an answer to, do we have the right schedule? Do we have the right technology? And then lastly, I guess, Dr. Smith, to your really important point, what would the ongoing costs be to maintain that kind of goal? So does that, Terry, is that clear to you and Marianne what I'm asking?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Smith?
We'll answer those questions for you.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to make sure they were clear. I got a little, not enough caffeine today, so that's what prompted the question. All right. Thank you very much. And by the way, thank you again for the report. I know what you do is really hard, and I just want to appreciate the workers who do this work and recognize that if there's an opportunity that we can remedy it, I'd really like to.
Happy to do it. Thank you as well.
Yes, thank you. Terry, one question. After reading a report that you show on the chart, it looks like the days where we have more people answering the call, certainly, like I think 12 was the highest number that I see. That was the day that the wait time was under 5 minutes, right? And it's the days where you have less than 12 people, especially down to 10 or less, that's when the wait time goes over. So I don't think this is necessarily rocket science. I mean, it's just logistics of how many people answering the calls, and the more people answering the calls, the less wait time it becomes. Am I correct?
Correct. And prior to COVID, we had probably around 7 call agents, because 4 of those were pulled off into the lobby.
Mm-hmm.
So we had worse wait times prior to COVID. So it does make sense. The more people on the phones, the shorter the wait times.
Good. So I guess it becomes maybe a really staffing issue if we need more, and I would love to see in your next report to talk about that. And on that report, if you could also include these type of performance standards and goals associated with the data collected, I think that would be helpful for us to understand how that's being managed. Obviously, wait time of, obviously that the less the better, but once you go over 8 or 10 minutes, I mean, I think a lot of people was either frustrated or whatnot, would hang up, and that's something we certainly need to improve on. Now, in terms of those people making the calls, do you know how many of these calls are related to the process of like filling out the application?
Most of the calls, according to our data, are about payment or payroll.
Payroll, right.
Any kind of discrepancies. And the next, I would say, common question is about application.
Okay, all right. So payment first. So since the application not as busy, but certainly is part of the numbers of people calling, I figured this might go also back to what we just talked about, item number 6. By having the push notification of application there, I think would eliminate or reduce the number of calls coming in. So potentially it could also solve this problem as well, right? When we fix the last one. So I just want to bring that up and see what we could do to give you more resources, in terms of hiring more people to answer the calls. That's one, and 2 is more IT support to getting those application easier or more accessible online. So all the ways to try to get these problems resolved without having to resort to more people calling. And I think Supervisor Chavez' suggestion is like, do we really have the right phone system, for example, right, to do that? So I would certainly like to work on all these issues to help solve this ongoing problem. I really do appreciate the very detailed data that was shared on the table. That's very helpful. And that would hopefully, given the other questions we raised, hopefully we'll be able to help find some other potential solutions or resources needed to do more decision making and moving this to the right direction. Thank you very much for the report again.
Thank you.
And, okay, and Supervisor Chavez, you have a motion to accept the report.
Thank you. I'd move to accept the report with the questions requested coming back to us in the budget process.
Great, thank you, and I'll definitely second that. And let's vote.
Vice Chairperson Chavez,
Yes.
Chairperson Lee.
Yes, as well.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, now we move to item number 8, which is the report from the Office of the County Executive and Facilities and Fleet Department relating to the status of Fairgrounds master planning process. And I believe we have, who is presenting this today? Glenn Williams, I see.
It is.
Yes, good afternoon, Glenn.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Lee, Vice Chairperson Chavez. The report, I actually have a very positive report for you.
Oh, good.
Much to my eternal surprise, things do happen when you hope that they will. The written report that you've received relative to the earthquakes indicated that we were at the last stages of negotiating the exclusive negotiating agreement. And I'm happy to report that we have a signed, executed ENA from the earthquakes. So it is our plan then to bring that to the full board for its approval at the earliest available moment.
Great. And Glenn, when do you think that will be?
We literally just got it, so I haven't had a chance to consult on how timing it to get to the board, but it won't happen obviously on next Tuesday. But that's too fast. But I'm assuming that we'll be able to get it in April, and I'm hopeful for the first meeting in April.
That's great. That's April 5th. That's great news. Thank you.
Okay.
But as I said, I haven't consulted on it, so I'm not promising it's the first meeting. We'll see how fast we can get everything aligned.
Great, thank you, Glenn, and that's certainly an earthquake moment, pun intended.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything else, Glenn? Or I see Abe is here as well.
Yeah, no, other than the fact that next month, I'm assuming I will have 3 items to report on. Basically, if I have a chance to talk to Charlie.
Okay, great. All right, so Supervisor Chavez, do you have any questions on this item?
Yes, thank you very much. I mean, first of all, thank you for the good news, Glenn. Second, I wanted to ask a kind of a bigger question relative to the fairgrounds from a county usage, and then come back and just talk about the fairgrounds for a minute. I'm wondering if there's any sense of the use of the fairgrounds, this emergency use that's going on, Dr. Smith, if the staff has got an exit strategy, or if we feel like we just still don't know enough to have one. And thank you.
At this point, we don't have an exit strategy because we really don't know enough to have one. I'm hoping that by the end of the fiscal year, we'll have a better idea of what's going on and what our needs are. We're trying at this point to divert patients to clinics, but the problem with that is that all of the patients are not necessarily patients that we typically take care of, and so there is not the ability to divert everybody to the clinics. But we'll know more at the end of the fiscal year.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. What I would like to request, again, as part of the budget process, if the staff could just give whatever update we might have as part of the budget process, so that we don't miss the, well, frankly, just because I think it would be helpful to understand some of the other activities at the fairgrounds.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. But I hear what you're saying is that I recognize it. The other thing is we've trained a whole, like, thousands and thousands and thousands of people to go to the fairgrounds.
Right.
So yeah, I understand the point. I also just want to acknowledge the really important work, Dr. Smith, that you and your staff have been doing to connect people back to their medical homes, which I think is very wise. And, you know, a challenge I think that is definitely impacting the fairgrounds is whether or not our brother and sister healthcare institutions are doing their part.
That's correct.
So maybe we know who should start getting the bill for the fairgrounds.
Yeah, we'll try that.
I'll be the person who delivers that. So, and then just a couple of other issues that I wanted to raise as it relates to the fairgrounds. So when the fairgrounds budget comes back during the budget process, I do want to make sure that we're very clear about where we are with reimbursements, and given that we don't know how long we're going to be on the site, what's the plan going forward financially? I'd like to make sure those questions are answered. And then one last question, Dr. Smith, that I wanted to ask you, and that is, we have the board has taken the position that we were going to really support efforts to continue to bring forward, interested parties. I think that what's happening at the fairgrounds right now with conversations with Cricket and the earthquakes, and hopefully if the board supports it, a possible ENA with San Jose State for the track, that we're gonna have. I know we have a few more people in the pipeline who've been reaching out, very interested in being on the site. One question, Dr. Smith, that I would be very interested in agendizing for our next board for this, if Supervisor Lee, if you're comfortable with it, is I'm very interested in having the discussion here about how we net all of these projects together, and whether or not we are going to be in need of a master developer, and what, if any, skill sets do we need on the county side to support and really facilitate the development of the fairgrounds for community uses. And I don't have an answer to that, Dr. Smith, but I think for our next meeting, that should at least be something that the staff is ready to discuss broadly about how to proceed.
We will do that.
Thank you. And I think the question that we're going to want to know is resources, just to restate this, resources for the county that may be necessary from a development perspective, negotiations perspective, and all of that, and whether or not the county may in fact need a master developer or have an approach that is analogous to that to support the development opportunities at the fairgrounds. And that's really just for the minutes here.
Yeah, we got it.
Thank you. And Supervisor Lee, does that make sense to you as well?
Yeah, that works for me. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. That would be my motion.
Okay, and I'll second it. And actually, do we have any public that would like to speak on this item at all?
No public comments, sir.
Okay, good. Go ahead and close the public hearing. I have no further question on this item other than a possible a recommendation in the future. So if we might be able to include also other activity updates occurring at the fairgrounds under the purview of FMC, just for our awareness. I certainly appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. All right. And that's all I have. And let's vote.
Vice Chairperson Chavez.
Yes.
Chairperson Lee.
Yes. And the report is received.
Thank you, Glenn and Abe.
Okay. So moving to item number 9, which is a report from the Behavioral Health Services Department relating to a 9-month update regarding the implementation status of the management audit recommendations. And today, I believe we have presented this.
Chair Lee.
Yes.
And
Hello, Sherry.
Hi, Sherry Terrell with our Behavioral Health Services Department, and here to report back on the 9-month update related to the implementation of the management audit recommendations for our Behavioral Health Services Department. So we just have a couple of slides and then are open to questions. So I'll go ahead and ask that the slide deck be advanced. Great. So we just wanted to share a couple of successes that have come about between January and February of 2022 related to the management audit. We have since included data on individuals' access to outpatient services after discharge and results from random audits of Barbara Aaron's Pavilion and our emergency psychiatric services in our quality improvement reports. We've also since hired our deputy director overseeing administration that is part of our executive team. We have provided a semi-annual update to the Health and Hospital Committee on several of our intensive programs, including intensive full service partnership, assertive community treatment, forensic assertive community treatment, and in-home outreach teams, performance and improvement objectives, and provided a semi-annual update to our Health and Hospital Committee on South County and Narvaez clinical services and service time activity. Advance a slide, please. And then we've also provided an off-agenda report comparing NetSmart to LA County's residential care facility dashboard, referred to as Merlin, or Mental Health Resource Locator and Navigator System. We've provided a semi-annual update to our Health and Hospital Committee on the impact of the residential care facility bed shortage on County General Fund. And then finally provided an audit update report to the Behavioral Health Quality Improvement Committee on the intensive programs, including IFSP, ACT, and IHOT. So that concludes our slides. I also wanted to just point to packet pages 37 through 44, which further outlines the recommendations and related action steps taken on those recommendations for the audit. And as you can see, many of the items that we have since reported on in previous meetings have since been completed. So at this point, I can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Sherry. First of all, do we have any first of all, Travis, would you like to ask questions first, or should we get the public speak first?
Public would be great.
Okay, sure. Anybody in the public would like to speak on this item?
We currently have one hand raised, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's do for 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. 3 minutes, sir. Our first speaker is Uday Kapoor. I am unmuting you. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you. Actually, I was just very disappointed with the response to the issue of shortage of the item 6.1. I think when I have been looking at this on behalf of NAMI, we see a lot of pain and the loss of facilities, shortage of bed care facilities. And when the management audit outlined all of the items that are responsible, one was that there is no process to track the facilities. And after a lot of effort, we got somebody like the LA County's capabilities brought in and shown here to show what they were doing. And in fact, they went through the same crisis that Santa Clara County went through, and they outlined bed tracking tool as a necessary tool, and also a membership of the providers working with that so that we will know where the facilities are, how many beds, the kind of beds. So first of all, with due respect, I appreciate the comparison that was done with the Merlin and my avatar, but the conclusions and where we stand is very disappointing. I think we need a solution as quickly as possible. It is acknowledged that those are two different systems, but we need to implement the capability that Merlin provides. So that's just a tool. Ultimately, the goal is to get more facilities available to the people that very direly need that. So this was just a simple step to find a solution to actually be able to track where the facilities are. And in my ways that I have tried to find out for the families, for NAMI, for example, we had tremendous difficulty in locating facilities that are appropriate to each family. So I would still urge county and supervisors to please reconsider staying with my avatar if that is the decision that has been made. I understand there is effort required, but it'll be more rapid to use the capability of something like Merlin, use the interoperability. We can sub-license the tool from them. Even Senator Jim Bell suggested that this tool is appropriate for all counties. He even suggested that maybe we should have the state distribute Merlin-like tool to all the counties. So please consider this request. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time.
Our next speaker is Urvish Kumar Mehta. I'm unmuting you. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you very much to Board of Supervisor Chavez, and Board of Supervisor Otto. I wanted to emphasize on the management audit report and as well as the behavioral health service department relating to implementation of management audit recommendation. When I was referring to the health and hospital committee's meeting yesterday, what I've learned is that there are bills that are required to be implemented within a specific set of a time. That implementation, in order to reform, perform, and then transform, that entire process takes about a year. And then when Board of Supervisors refers to the report, the implementation of a management audit, that only provides that how that particular Senate or Assembly bill or act which has provided the respective funding has delivered the results within the finance and government operations or not. It is important that with behavioral health services specifically, it is important that those management audits requires to be reflect that what exactly has been done, what is the allocation of the management audit, and the purpose of it that is serving to the Board of Supervisors in a sense that they be able to reflect the right set of data which has been accumulated with the service that they are providing. We are talking about a technological model where we utilize the transformation of the data model, data science, and as well as identify the gaps with respect to the audit that has been performed by the management team. Such implementation is very important, and it is equally important that the report be analyzed based upon the data and the service that has been performed. The reform, perform, and transform. The reform is the implementation of the Senate and Assembly bill. The perform is that how the audit recommends the Board of Supervisors that what are the gaps that needs to be filled, and transform is the transformation of a system that is going to reflect that how the changes of a reform, perform, and transform has implemented those changes. Again, I want to thank you, Board of Supervisors, for considering these comments, and also wanted to mention that this report be done quarterly based upon the audit that has been performed by the management. Thank you very much.
And that concludes our request to speak, Mr. Chair.
Good. Thank you for information, and thank you for the speakers earlier regarding those issues. That was very concerning to us. Back in January, Supervisor Chavez and I talked about the need for bed tracking system in Santa Clara County. And I first wanted to thank you, Sherry, for your team for responding last month to my off-agenda report request to compare our counties, NetSmart, MyAvatar, and LA County's Merlin systems for the real-time bed tracking. During the HXC meeting yesterday, Sherry, you brought up an interesting development from the behavioral health department about the pilot bed tracking system for licensed and contracted residential care facility beds. And you talked about coming back to the June FGOC meeting to share the information about the pilot development and findings. So I would like to confirm your request that you come back to June FGOC meeting to share this information and would like to include the following type of directions. One is to ask the administration to incorporate all the functions of the Merlin system based on the off-agenda report, such as being a comprehensive bed registry solution, tracking beds real-time for county and contracted providers, tracking beds for unlicensed or non-contracted providers, data population and public-facing dashboards, interactive mapping, surge capabilities, mobile capabilities, and support acute psychiatric services. And I would also like to ask the administration to provide different levels of system access for county staff and contracted providers to view and enter these real-time bed data. My goal here is to ensure that our county will be able to provide the same level of information and data and features that the LA County has developed with the Merlin system. And as I mentioned in my comment from the January FGOC meeting, when we heard the bed tracking item, this type of identifying bed monitoring availability, a logistics issue, not really a behavioral health issue. So I really look forward to this progress improvement of the county. And yeah, that's my comments. And Supervisor Travis, do you have any questions on this item as well?
Yes, I do. Sherry, do you want to respond to what Supervisor Lee just laid out?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to. We did, as Supervisor Lee stated, just have this discussion yesterday in our Health and Hospital Committee, where I did share that our Behavioral Health Services Department is already working on discussions and planning for a pilot tracking system for licensed and contracted residential care facility beds that could potentially fulfill the needs without procuring, purchasing and launching and training staff for a new software system. So our idea was to really engage the stakeholders and others in the conversation and process and looking at that. And then we had reported back that we would be able to come back to the June FGOC meeting with a full report on the progress related to that. And I'm happy to incorporate, understandably, Supervisor Lee's additional request that he just stated today in this meeting as we think about coming back and planning for the June FGOC meeting.
Sherry, could you just take a minute to talk about the path that you're recommending versus we have a county that's got something that's working, and why we wouldn't just kind of follow the leader there? And I heard what you said about training, but I feel like no matter what we do, we're going to have a training issue. But perhaps you could just educate us a little bit about the path you're choosing.
Sure. So there is already a current report that we are that we track on a daily basis, where we have our 24-hour care staff contact the different facilities and update that on a daily basis. We've since expanded and enhanced that report to be able to include additional functionality. And I think to the public commenter's point, and to your point, Supervisor Chavez, that you've raised in past conversations, is the availability and being able to make that public facing so that providers or others would have access to that information. So what we plan to share in June after further vetting with the public is just what we've since developed and enhanced based upon our existing reporting practice. And, you know, I think that could obviously fulfill a lot of the requests that have been made thus far. And we would bring that back in June to have that publicly vetted with the FGOC and the public. And then from there, we could look at other options. But we believe we have something that could work well. We just need a little more time to have those conversations with our stakeholders about what we've since developed.
So a couple of issues I would just want to highlight, and I think that one of the points that Supervisor Lee raised is right, which, Sherry, I think part of this is not a behavioral health issue. It's an overall how we're doing business in general issue. And so recognizing that what I'm about to say may be more reflective of how we're interfacing with our TSS department. But I think if the outcome is that it's very transparent what resources are available and what resources are being used at any given time, I think that originally I was fine with, let's just have something that's even static, but I'm now understanding that the dynamic nature of the human need we're dealing with is so profound that having something that's highly operational and highly accurate is very important for us to understand how to fix our system. And, you know, one thing, Sherry, that I really felt for you, because I think one of the challenges that you have is that a big part of your report to us is on all the reports you're doing. And I know the reason for that is because the board is really trying to get their arms around what's happening, because what's happening, and so much of the good work you're doing, we can't see. What we see are the people who are out on the street who need help, and the calls that we get from parents who can't navigate for their children the system, and for adults, you know, NAMI activists who are saying, look, we really want to help our children and we can't. Like so the conclusion I've come to is that that you probably have the hardest job in the county right now, and that the reason you have so many people kind of coming at you is that absent understanding the system robustly, people are going to try to fix what they understand or what they don't understand. So one of my concerns would be that as it relates to bed availability, Sherry, that it's really built into operations a little more diligently, so that people have well, anyway, so I guess what I'm concerned about with what you're describing is it sounds a little more static than what LA has. And I'm curious for you, what's the decision pivot point there about why not? Yeah, sorry, I want you to answer that.
Sure. I mean, I think with respect to evaluation of the systems, even in our conversation with LA, the information in the system as they describe real time still relies on someone to input the data. And so, you know, real time is dependent on good data going in and good data coming out. And so what we're suggesting in terms of the reporting strategy and implementation plan that we're planning to share with you is we can build that system in-house potentially and still get the same results with what we're proposing, rather than purchasing an external system and all of the infrastructure and effort necessary to launch that. So that's what we're proposing at this point.
So I think that just a couple of observations I want to make. One thing is that the system that we're using, we have many systems here that are legacy systems that we have created that we still need to maintain. And we have people who've retired and we can't maintain some of the software systems. I could give you some examples, but I would rather not do that. So my concern would be that if we're building something out and we're customizing it to our needs, great, as long as the plan to maintain it and support it is really built into the organization. I will say that I know that a number of our nonprofits have had concerns about the implications of having yet one more thing they have to do and one more thing that people have to enter and one more, you know, and I get all that, except the problem that we have is that on any given day or night, you don't know, nobody does, where there's slack in the system and opportunity to get people help. Nobody knows the answer to that. So if what you're saying is that you think the approach you're taking is going to answer that question for you, and that it will be interactive enough that that we're going to be able to use that for placement, like somebody at the recovery center over here can actually go onto a computer instead of calling the list of phone numbers they have in front of them to find a location for somebody who wants to get clean and sober or get mental health support services. Would that be the product that they would have a live screen that they could go on and find places for placement?
Yes, it would be public facing with the information that we would be able to share through that venue. So they're not having to then look for another list of information. The idea is that this would be public facing. And I see Brian turning on his camera. So maybe Brian, you could just speak to some of the elements that we're looking at.
Yeah, just trying to explain a little bit further. There is no one single live database for all of this information. So if somebody were to look for a placement and say, I see a bed, they couldn't reserve that bed and then notify the rest of the system that that bed is now taken, right? And there's a whole certain of things that would need to happen to get that bed taken. So as Sherry noted, the piece about live is as live as we can get it when we can get updates, and the board and cares, the unlicensed board and cares and non-contracted folks, our understanding is that we believe that we could do, as I think you had even suggested, and Harvey Rose had certainly suggested as well, for folks that don't have the technological savvy and things of that nature, to actually make phone calls and make sure that we're getting that information. So that's as live as we could have it, but we could certainly have that public facing on the website, so that every time that we have an update, that information is as live and as real as it can be. We can add the other RCFs as if as they are discovered. If there's more that are registered, we could put those on, and it would essentially be a dashboard that folks could reference, from our website to show when the most recent updates for all of these locations were. We could list out the various different kind of qualifications for admission to those programs and so forth. I hope that helps.
So, so thank you. I'm gonna press on this point just a little bit more because I want to make sure I understand it. So right now, if we've been working really hard to build out our charge system, where you can go charge your car. And so if I click on charge point right now, I can find out what's proximate to me and whether or not there are any charge stations open. Will this system have that capacity that you're looking at creating?
I mean, I think that means literal live time, because there is a charge either, plugged in or not, right?
Yes.
So we don't have a way of detecting precisely with places that don't have electronic systems that can interface with ours. We don't have a way of detecting when that discharge has taken place. So there's no plug into any of our systems, so to say now discharged. A lot of these RCFs are on paper charts and or not electronic records and so forth. So when even if they're on electronic health record, if they hit discharge, if we have that interface, then we can get that potentially live time in some ways through the development of a lot of technological kind of application programming interfaces. But so no. Okay.
So when somebody gets into EPS and EPS is looking for a place to discharge them, to place them, is the system that they have in EPS live?
Well, yes. So EPS is on HealthLink, so they're on a different medical record, a different electronic health record than behavioral health is. So they are in the Epic system in HealthLink. And yes, for their system, when they are discharging somebody, I would imagine that electronic health record is updated immediately. Yeah.
So I will tell you, I'm not sure that's actually, Curtis, do you know the answer to that?
I know the answer.
Oh gosh, can I tell you something really funny, Jeff? You said that and Curtis's mouth was moving, so that was weird. But go ahead, Jeff, Dr. Smith.
Epic is the electronic medical record, but what you're talking about, it requires all of the providers to have immediate data on a database. And only some of the providers even have an electronic medical record to be able to do that. So it can't at this point be done like a charge point, because each source of data has a different way of getting into the data system. Some providers have to do it, manually. I would say most have to do it manually. So there's no way in EPS to know exactly instantaneously what's available, but we do know that we have the medical record, and if there's electronic access, we can do that, because some of the providers are on Epic at home, so they can keep track of that.
So I think what I think here's the point that I want to make is that I think we all recognize that that there are some challenges, some probably pretty significant challenges. I know there are with our system, and I know we're really strained. We don't have enough people. We have people that are on the street that are getting sicker and sicker and sicker. We don't have appropriate placements for them. And when people do come into our to get access to services, it's very, very difficult to get people the services they need. And that's whether that's behavioral health or drug and alcohol services. So the real question I'm asking is, and trying to get answered, is this. I started out with the bed count because honestly, I couldn't answer a very simple question for myself or the public, which is, what more beds do we need? How do we know we need them? How long does it take to get someone in? And by the way, we have a different interpretation between the staff and the public about how long it should take to get someone in, right? We've identified somebody who wants to get clean and sober, and it takes X number of days to get their paperwork together and Y number of days to get them in. And we're trying to get people, off the streets. So the reason I was pressing on this was really just to better calibrate the following, that when this comes back to the board, I would just be able to want to know, what should our expectation from the system be? And what I'm concerned about is that if we don't, recognizing there are so many missing pieces or moving parts, and I think Dr. Smith, you and Brian raised a really good point, and so did Sherry, about how every institution we're dealing with has a different way of communicating. If our overall goal isn't to make it one system that can communicate with each other, and that we're not using technology to do that, I think we're going to stay stuck where we're stuck. I think that's one issue. And I won't beat it anymore, because I don't think we're going to come to a resolution, but I am really concerned that my expectations are moving. The longer it takes us to get the basic information, the more concerned I'm becoming that instead of doing something interim, we may just need to skip to the end and figure out what that system is. And and I know we have a shortage of beds. So let me just move on to that. Brian, thank you. Curtis, thank you. And Sherry, I think we're still kind of on different places, but I just think I don't really know how to move us from point A to point B. I would also say that we're focused an awful lot on behavioral health. I want to make sure that we're looking at drug and alcohol the same, like that we're really treating behavioral health as one system. And it's not clear to me yet, Sherry, that you're there. I think you're working to get there, but I'm not sure that that's evidence yet in the information we're getting. Dr. Smith, this is a question for you. This had to do with Section 6 of the audit, and the audit, it just points out what we already know, which is we have a shortage of residential beds. And I'm just wondering if that is a body of work that's being addressed, not through Sherry's shop, but Jeff, honestly, through your shop.
Yes, we're trying to find ways to increase the number of beds available to us. The reality is that we're probably going to have to build sufficient beds.
Build it out ourselves, Jeff?
Yeah, right.
One thing I think that I hope we're not missing it, but I'm concerned that we are, is missing the purchase of facilities as they're closing. And I know that's a referral I made quite a while ago, and perhaps when Sherry gets a chance to, in fact, Jeff, maybe as part of budget, just as part of the housing work, maybe we can get a report out on whether or not we're doing that, who's responsible for it, do we have outside brokers, do we have any expectation that's a successful strategy? If so, why? If not, why not?
Sure, we can do that.
Thank you. And then section 7 is related to the Independent Living Empowerment Project. And I know this is really important to the consumer community, Sherry. I know you've been hearing about it from them. I'm hopeful that we're working really closely with families and consumers on the implementation. I'm sure you are. Is that accurate?
We are.
Okay, good. You know, on section 8 is really the area where a lot of my interest lies, and that is that I was hoping that this would identify and connect people in EPS with community-based treatments or other treatments, including, you know, how we're connecting people or not to the IMD beds. And I'm a little concerned. Well, you know, I'm on this front. I'm concerned that we're not really just quantifying what's available and really digging in and being able to say, here's how long the wait's going to be, and frankly, setting goals for what we should be building. And again, Sherry, I'm not sure if we know the answer to that, because I know we have a lot of activity that we haven't yet been able to quantify kind of the bigger impacts and those gaps in services. So I don't know if you have a plan about how you're going to move in that direction, or if you feel like you are now, and if so, like, how would we be understanding what the ultimate what a system build out would look like? Not that we're going to get there in the next 1 or 2 or 3 years, but is that something that you're imagining now? And if so, is it something that will be shared with the board?
Yeah, so as we shared during the behavioral health special session, there was a significant focus on bed capacity and availability at multiple levels of our system, whether acute, subacute, or residential. And so in the April full board meeting, we will be coming back and addressing some of the questions that came forward during the workshop to be able to address that. And I think, to your point, Supervisor Chavez, it's about how our individuals coming through, right, EPS and our system, and then ending up being connected with whatever level of care or placement is needed. And we did share during the behavioral health workshop just the fact that across all levels of bed needs, there are unmet needs. And so during that April meeting, we will be coming forward with some recommendations around that.
Thank you. I'm gonna list off the areas that I'm most concerned about. I want to thank Supervisor Lee and Sherry for and Dr. Smith and everyone for answering all my questions. I still would love a single number for behavioral health services and have another place that can be triaged. I have so many numbers to call when I see someone in need, and I actually read your reports, and I can't tell people what number to dial. And I think that's really important. And second, that I'm very interested in what we're doing very specifically for seriously mentally ill individuals displaying high needs of support. We talked about extending contracts with our nonprofit partners so that they could do outreach and we could be moving people into supportive services. And I still have not seen who's doing it, what's their success rate look like, what are we learning from that, how many people are being placed. And it's something that I know I've requested for a very long time. I don't actually know exactly how long. 3, that we identify the gaps in services that we just talked about, Sherry, but without saying we need more. Being able to set goals. Again, I don't think it's something we're going to get to right away, but I think it's important to know what we're building out for. Again, I'll just urge Dr. Smith that we look at expanding the Office of the Public Guardian. I think that's just going to be an imperative to getting these high needs folks served. And then finally, really better understanding what we're doing for folks who are homeless and who are displaying a high need of support. And I do think that's different than folks who are housed and how we're approaching them. In fact, I know it is. So absent really understanding the plan for each of those populations, I just don't know how to assess the information that we're getting. And then, lastly, Sherry, I want to say very sincerely, thank you. I know you and your team are working really hard. And I recognize you're getting a lot of referrals from all of us, and that's feels like more work. But I think the way I am interpreting that is two-part. One, the board has a high level of interest, and two, we don't yet see the overall plan in clear, crisp ways that allow us to say, oh, we're moving in a direction that we can all get on board with. And I think this is just part of an iterative process to us getting our arms around this as a community. So I don't want you or your team to take it as any kind of sign of disrespect. For me, really, it's kind of the most exciting time I've seen for behavioral health, because for many years, I feel like there were a couple people asking about it. Now the whole community is. And, and I think there's a higher level of, interest in detox. I'm personally interested in that. Medical detox. I think these are all opportunities. So in any case, I know it feels overwhelming. I'm not intending to overwhelm. I'm really intending just to say to you, I think this is an exciting time for us moving forward.
Great. No, I appreciate your comments and questions, and certainly appreciate the board's, continued dedication to behavioral health and really trying to figure out how we best address the needs that we see in the community. So we're very appreciative of that, and we'll continue to come forward, and articulate those plans. I think the report back in April, following our workshop will be hopefully helpful to the board.
By the way, I thought the workshop was very well done. Thank you. I didn't remember if I said it that night, so thank you. Please share that with the staff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Lee.
Thank you, Supervisor Travis. Do you have a motion for this acceptance report and all the comments enclosed?
Yes.
Okay, and I'll go and second it, and let's vote.
Vice Chairperson Chavez.
Yes.
Chairperson Lee.
Aye as well.
Thank you.
Okay, we now move to item number 11, which is semi-annual report from the Office of County Executive, Internal Audit Division. And I believe, is Robin Rose here to present this? Hello, Robin. I think you're muted. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Hi, good afternoon.
No worries. Good afternoon. Go ahead.
I have a brief presentation, so I
Please
will
do. Go
share
ahead.
my screen.
Yes, we can see it now. Robin, go ahead.
Perfect. So I'd like to share our semi-annual status report for the first half of fiscal year 21-22, which would be July to December. And to provide a brief background about internal audit, professional auditing standards, require that the chief audit executive, which would be myself, provide the board with periodic updates on internal audit activities. And our first half of the year activities from July to December are presented to FGOC in March, while the second half of the year is presented in September of the following year. So information included in this update are for July to December of 2021. And we know a little bit about our mission. Our goal is to provide independent and objective assurance that internal controls are operating as intended and risks are mitigated. And one way that we do that is to add value to the county by helping management achieve their goals and objectives using a systematic approach to evaluate and improve effectiveness of business operations. And this is particularly important as the county continues to face challenges with the COVID-19 pandemic and other current world events. But unfortunately, we have faced some internal challenges. When we moved from the Comptroller Treasurer's office to the CEO's office in the beginning of the fiscal year, we had 2 staff positions added, but currently we have just myself, the internal audit manager. The supervising internal auditor position became vacant as of November of 2021. And there are currently 4 vacant positions at the internal auditor level. So the difficulties have been really difficult trying to hire, but on a good side, we do have 2 staff positions that were recently hired starting in April of 2022 and currently interviewing for the supervising internal auditor position. So the round 2 of that will be happening within the next 2 weeks. Now, a little bit about our work plan for the 6-month period. So to kind of highlight what happened, what was presented in August of last year, was our work plan had 38 audit projects divided into mandated tasks, high-risk audits, requests from departments and new special requests that may come throughout the year, which has happened historically. And there were also 14 potential other audits that we can do if resources became available or the need arose. We estimated that it would take about 12,400 hours of internal audit staff to perform those projects, and which will leave the remaining 3,980 hours to potentially outsource, since the total hours were over 16,000. And this takes into consideration any personal leave, meetings, administrative tasks, and other improvements that we're making internally to revamp our auditing process. And as of today, there have been no audits that have been outsourced to a CPA firm. So the current reality for the year, as of the 6-month period, we spent 2,856 hours on audit activities, and they were spent on 6 mandated or ongoing tasks, about 4 projects that were carried over from the prior year, 1 special request received by management, and we initiated high-risk audits that we know we can realistically accomplish with our current staffing levels. There were about 2 requests for that. We also, had 1 staff person that was requested by the Emergency Operations Department to help with the mobile vaccination efforts. He was previously part of that effort and was specifically requested because of his ability to improve and operations as well as the efficiency with the reporting and the tasks that were given to him. We also had other staff that were working on COVID-related activities and came back to full-time internal audit in the summer of 2021, and they were able to return back to internal audit activities, but it took some time to transition back, so that's where the major discrepancies occurred. So on a positive side, some of our accomplishments, we did initiate a consulting engagement with the Finance Agency's Controller Treasury Department, evaluating COVID funding received to ensure if it was dispersed or authorized for authorized purposes, reported correctly in our financial system and adhered to regulatory requirements, and also continued efforts with the Office of Supportive Housing's Isolation and Quarantine Program, evaluating the appropriateness of funding received, of financial assistance payments distributed to households impacted by the pandemic. And also on this slide is SSA's Public Administrator Guardian Office, evaluating the existence and effectiveness of key internal controls over management of assets for vulnerable clients residing in the county. We also started a consulting project, which was a special request received from FAF for one of their construction contracts, determining if the prime contractor followed county's procurement and bidding processes, as well as any other regulatory requirements. Initiated an audit of SSA's AB 12 Extended Foster Care Program to evaluate the effectiveness of management's internal controls over the program and ensure compliance with funding requirements and county policies. We also initiated an audit with SEPA's Weights and Measures Division to evaluate effectiveness of internal controls and compliance over their inspections process, as well as the devices they use. And then last, we just started a follow-up audit of the Controller Treasurer's payroll overpayment audit that was issued by our office back in April of 2019. And with that, are there any questions?
Yes, thank you very much. I have no questions as well. As Chavez, do you have any questions?
Yes, I mean, I think, could you talk just a little bit about the audit that you did? So first of all, this is a lot of work, so thank you for that. I mean, I just want to acknowledge that. On these audits, what I'm a little unclear about, do your audits work the same way as all of the audits, which is that, the audits that we have with the other auditor in terms of going through them and making decisions about how each item is pursued?
No, I can answer that. Internal audit does management audits as advisory to the board and to management But it's not like Harvey Rose where a grid is developed. It's an advisory report, and much of what they're doing is required for good practice by, for example, looking to make sure that a contractor follows all of the county policies and procedures, looking at cash flow, making sure that when an executive leaves a space that we do an audit of all their assets. So it's really distinct from Harvey Rose.
So let me just make an observation. When I was reviewing this, I had the impression that there were some important issues that we needed to be able to understand and weigh in on. And what I'm going to just recommend is that I think these are fine to receive. I think where there are differences between the recommendation and the auditor's response, in general, I'm inclined to support the auditor's findings in these. I mean, I thought what I thought was really good is that most people seemed to agree, Robin, with the feedback you were giving. But what I didn't know is with departments where there are more than a few recommendations that may actually lead to a need for a higher level of intervention. I wondered if there was an internal process for addressing that.
Yeah, so if we know there's a potential flood risk or some specialized area that we may not have the expertise or the available resources, that's where we would consider outsourcing to another CPA firm. And we do have a list of pre-vetted firms that we can easily lean on if needed in that situation.
But it seems to me that that along the lines of the Department of Tax collectors, that there was enough in here that it seems like there may be some I don't know the right word, but a kind of a higher level of issues that need to be addressed. And I'm wondering if that was your thinking too, or do you feel like the recommendations you've made are enough to get the department on? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I know I'm skipping ahead. I'm skipping ahead. I think what happened is I'm looking at two different grids. So let me let you finish and just say I appreciated the report very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I know it's because the Harvey Rose and then my last name is Rose too, so sometimes there's confusion among departments. But yeah, the management auditors did the audit for DTAC, but there are times where we do departments can audit within the same department. So Cheryl and I have coordinated to make sure there's no duplication of efforts. But also, like Dr. Smith said, we also do other types of procedural and compliance type tasks that help departments ensure that they're in compliance with our policies and follow specific guidance.
So you're doing, so just, Robin, just to make sure I understand that too, that last point you raised is that your point is also that you can both look at the financial issues and the management issues also, like Harvey Rose?
Yes, operationally, we look at operationally and ways to collaborate with departments to help them given their limited resources and current circumstances, and be mindful of that and help them kind of achieve their objectives by providing some meaningful recommendations, so that way they can still provide the same level of service.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for catching that. I got these out of order. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, it's because I think 10 and we're on 11, so.
Yeah.
Okay, if no further questions, I'll open, is there any public to speak on this one?
We currently have one hand raised, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
3 minutes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. Our first speaker is Urvish Kumar Mehta. I'm unmuting you. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you very much again to Board of Supervisors, Lee Chavez and Board of Supervisor Otterly. I wanted to specifically mention about the two slides that Robin Rosen introduced. First slide about the Assembly Bill 12 for Extended Foster Care Program and the California Fostering Connection to Success Act. This act was introduced back in January 1, 2012. Now, also to mention about that California's Extended Foster Care Program, which specifically allows the youth and child welfare and the probation system to remain in foster care until 21. Along with that, there is also a Children's Law Center. Along with that, a program that is also inclusion with the Assembly Bill 12, and as well as the Fostering Connection to Success Act. Both the programs are beneficial to minor, and as well as a part of a juvenile court non-minor transition jurisdiction of the juvenile court to specify the specific criteria for the juvenile court. Now, as what she explained on another slide, that there are two routes to be seen with regards to such requests in terms of an audit. That shows that when there is any kind of a special request from the Board of Supervisor or management that is to be audited, as well as a cost specification, budgeting, and as well as introducing any Senate or legislative bill within the California state that is require utmost attention to be implemented. In such case that the bills which has been lapsed or has been not implemented, or in the case where the grants were available, however, it was left because of the bill was not implemented, that deprives the county as well as the county staff from the availability and as well as the benefits that County of Santa Clara and citizen to take, and also to see that how such how audit helps such picking up such issues and also filling in the gaps. It's also important that that's what it is called is a disparity in terms of an audit. The audit is recommended because it picks up the certain loopholes within the system and provides a feedback on that, whether that is something required to be implemented based upon the special request or not. There are two routes that we are able to see over here, that whether with the specific budget of allocation and with the audit request, whether something that can be entertained based upon the request by the Board of Supervisor or not. And Board of Supervisor also get the vision of such in a case that what services are actually required to be implemented based upon the audit. So this is something required to be done quarterly as well. Thank you very much for considering our comments.
That concludes our request to speak.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. We'll go and take the vote, please.
Vice Chairperson Chavez.
Yes.
Chairperson Lee.
Yes, as well. Moving to item number 10, which is this already been actually reported previously, but again, it's come back to us from the Office of County Exec regarding the Fairgrounds Management Corporation fiscal year 22 proposing budget and I'm sorry. Let me try again. 10 is the receiving and management audit of the Department of Tax and Collections and provide directions regarding the audit recommendations. Okay, here we go. And let's see. So first of all, I would like to say thank you to Margaret, Margarita, Candace, and Sylvia for meeting with our staff to address all the questions that was presented. So at this point, since we have already heard this previously, I would like to just highlight and provide further direction on the following recommendations on item 1.3, 8.1, 8.2, and 10.2. Do you think that would be okay with you, Supervisor Chavez? Actually, I think she might just have stepped off.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, yes, okay, good, thank you. So item number 1.3 would like to move with the direction from the department, since it looks like that's what have in place has always been working. And recommendation 8.1 is regarding the court collection agreement of Superior Court. On that one, I would like to suggest to do develop a contingency plan to address in case if Superior Court does not renew the agreement with us. They have a 3-year.
Can I stop you just
Sure,
real quick?
please,
Can
go
you say what packet page you're on, if you have that in front of you?
Sure. First is 1. I'm on 8.1. Let me pull it 1 second. This is a big one. Sorry.
I got it. It's on packet page 189. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I was just on my
No
note.
problem. I know
Sorry about that.
I put my notes sometimes separate as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that's right. So for 8.1 regarding court collections agreement, Superior Court, since since Superior Court have renewed the 3 extensions, right, that will expire in June 2024. I just want to make sure that there will be some level of certainty about revenue sources in the future. Given the fact that the funds from the court is close to 23% of the department's total general fund revenue, I think it would be good to make sure that we have some type of contingency in case somehow Superior Court does not renew the contract 2024. It was explained to me that the DTAC is already monitoring the fiscal implications if they don't, and I would like to learn more of these implications. So, and to request an off-agenda report from the administration concerning the development of the contingency plan that addresses the potential revenue loss in case of such a non-renewal. On recommendation 8.2 regarding the renegotiation of the performance measures and clarifying goals, it has to do with the potential renegotiation of the performance measure in the index agreement for court comprehensive collection program, along with the working with Superior Court to establish a formal collections committee to help develop and clarify goal and providing a forum for addressing collection issues that may arise. This recommendation is contingent if the county will continue to have its collections agreement with Superior Court after 24. So I would like to also request an off-agenda report from administration regarding the potential application of this recommendation once the existing contract extension expires, to highlight and pursue any tasks that can be done in advance of the administration. And then the other one is on 10.2, amending the county ordinance code and clarifying medical debt authorizations. I'm asking the administration to provide a direct response to 10.2, return to FGOC in April for discussion. The HHC should also simultaneously be notified of any response that the administration provides, as it also relates to the audit recommendation. And that's all I have. If Supervisor Shaw, if you agree to, we can move that those recommendations to the full board.
So moved.
Thank you. Second. And do you have anything else yourself on this issue?
No, thank you.
Okay, all right, good. Too easy. Do we have any speaker on this issue?
No speakers, Mr. Chair.
All right, close the public hearing, and I'll go ahead and take the vote, please.
Vice Chairperson Chavez.
Yes.
Chairperson Lee.
Yes, as well. Thank you. Now moving to item number 12, which is received a report from the Office of Sustainability relating to county sustainability. And I believe we have Jasneet Sharma, our Director of Office of Sustainability, and Tanya Vich, Senior Management Analyst today. Am I correct, Jasneet?
Absolutely. Thank you, Supervisor Lee, and good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine, and we can see your presentation as well. Thank
Absolutely. You. Thank you so much. So again, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jasneet Sharma. I'm the Director for the Office of Sustainability, and accompanying me on today's presentation is Tanya Vich, Senior Management Analyst with the office as well. Before we go into presenting the slides for today, I just wanted to provide some context as well. Many of you are familiar with this, but just want to reiterate some points before I hand off to Tanya. We all know that the scientific evidence today is pretty unequally vocal. Climate change is a threat to human well-being and the health of our planet. The Earth's climate is headed for irreversible and catastrophic conditions if we do not take action immediately, curb emissions, and protect people and places. Climate change is also known to be a stress multiplier, and it's expected to amplify existing inequities. So in Santa Clara County, the projected increase in climate change induced hazards, which you're seeing on the slide in front of you, which include extreme heat, sea level rise, precipitation, and wildfire, will amplify existing inequities in housing affordability, food insecurity, income, education, and health outcomes, just to name a few. as also seen during COVID, certain populations based on socioeconomic characteristics and the conditions of the built environment where they live in Santa Clara County are at higher risk of being harmed from both present and future climate events. So any further delay in a concerted action will really make us miss a very brief and rapidly closing window to secure a livable future for the residents in our county. I will hand off to Tanya to present on some of the key highlights from the attached 2021 annual sustainability report. And I would also like to point out that this is really a team effort. We are very thankful to all the departments. They are the ones that really provide us with all the data that we are presenting to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine, and good afternoon. My name is Tanya Veach, Senior Management Analyst with the Office of Sustainability. As a reminder, the sustainability vision is achieved through promoting solutions across the Sustainability Master Plan's 4 priority areas. In the interest of time today, I'll be highlighting key achievements across the 4 priority areas you see on this slide. The focus for the first year of implementation has been to support county departments operationalize the Sustainability Master Plan and integrate sustainability as a core function within county operations. The Office of Sustainability facilitated the following activities to support internal coordination, collaboration, and communications across county departments. We hosted quarterly sustainability meetings to create a community of practice that leverages departmental expertise and sharing of best practices, launched and provided ongoing support to 5 working groups such as the Sustainable Purchasing, Green Building Policy, and Teleworking. Worked with departments to add 12 new dashboards to the Sustainability Master Plan website and developed a Sustainability Master Plan roadshow for departments to learn about and apply sustainability practices. Several actions in 2021 continue to support the county's efforts to reduce the carbon footprint from its operations. As of 2020 inventory shows, we reduced emissions 24% from 2019, some of which is due to the changes of operations during the pandemic. This happened through actions such as new electric vehicle charging stations at county facilities, adoption of an all-electric reach codes, and the completion of the county's first all-electric building at the Vietnamese American Services Center, VASC, implementation of a countywide teleworking policy, and significant increase in percentage of employees teleworking. This year saw the continuation and expansion of the county's efforts to reduce water use in county operations. A recycled water system at VASC was installed for landscaping, and recommendations were developed for a programmatic and infrastructure plan for water conservation. Encourage proper disposal of household hazardous waste. In 2021, we saw the highest collected rate of material from residents, including a 28% increase in household hazardous waste collection since 2016. Expand the urban forest by planting 606 out of the 1,000 trees required to be planted annually. Through December 2021, 1,302 trees have been planted through the county's tree planting and stewardship program. The county continued to work towards a healthier community by expanding safety net services and providing opportunities for physical activity and personal enrichment. VASC is the largest cafe program in the county and serves nearly 500 meals Monday through Saturday. Since 2020, over 3,600 households were permanently housed, and shelter capacity increased by 21%, increasing the total number of beds to over 2,200. The Juntos Initiative was launched in October 2021, providing Valley Medical Center pediatric patients and their families prescriptions to attend guided park activities, including hikes, gardening, outdoor family games, and feeding farm animals. The county continued to promote leadership and collaboration by approving the Food System Initiative Work Plan to guide county actions toward creating a more resilient, equitable, and sustainable food system. Early actions included hiring an ag liaison and establishing a working group that is prioritizing strategies to address food security. adopted a sustainable purchasing policy. 2022 priorities include conducting a spend analysis to identify high areas of impact for sustainable purchasing and implementing guidelines for compost, mulch, and paper. Despite the ongoing demands of the pandemic, 44% of public health department staff completed a web-based training to address the effects of climate change on human health. Today, the training is currently being adapted for all county employees. Several new efforts will be launched or completed over the next 2 years that will further the county's standing as a leader in sustainability and resilience. These include presenting implementation roadmaps to accelerate carbon neutrality for county operations and unincorporated areas, implementing preparedness and resilience projects to improve resiliency to flooding, heat waves, and impaired air quality, expanding the county's natural resource management portfolio in regional urban forestry management, biosequestration, water use conservation, and sustainable landscaping, and the creation of the Sustainability Commission, training for employees, and refined system to enhance sustainability initiatives, tracking, and reporting. I want to elevate a few exciting projects that are moving forward this year: a commuter platform to improve employee commute through increased utilization of alternative modes of transportation, including teleworking and tracking savings of greenhouse gas emissions, implementation of solar app to fast track the solar installation in unincorporated county, and in collaboration with Parks and FAF, we are piloting a mobile solar charging station that provides off-grid electricity and battery storage for the use of EV trucks charging to support county parks operations. The mobile solar station will also be used to support operations in the event of a power outage, with the ability to move the station to any location where stored electricity is needed. And with that, thank you so much for your time. Jesney and I are happy to respond to any questions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for the report. And this annual sustainability report is certainly a very exciting read to me. So first, do we have any public would like to speak on this item?
No request to speak.
Okay, I'll go and close the public hearing. Supervisor Sharps, do you have any questions on this one?
I wanted to say how much I appreciated the report. It was very interesting to see the intersectionality of it and to better understand how important it is to scaffold in the work that you're doing. And so I really appreciate it. I guess the one question I would have for you is, and this is putting Dr. Smith again on the spot, but are there departments that you feel like, I saw that there are departments that are kind of knocking it out of the park, but are there departments you need to nudge? And we don't have to out them here, but how is that going? I guess it's maybe a better way to ask it.
Are you asking me or Jesney?
Well, I didn't want her to have to out them. I guess what I was curious about, Dr. Smith, is are you able to communicate directly with this department so that if departments are less responsive, that they have a pathway, that Jesney and Tanya have a pathway to use so that departments can be encouraged?
Yeah, Jesney can always contact me. She reports directly to Sylvia, but anytime there's an issue, they bring it up to me. And you know, as you would expect, some departments are really good, some departments aren't so good. But,
well, enthusiastic or less enthusiastic?
Yeah, that's about right.
Okay. Well, I'll speak with you a little bit more about that offline. But.
And Supervisor Chavez, if I might add like another fine point on it, I don't know if it's as much about enthusiastic or not. You know, in some departments, like sustainability just naturally aligns with what they do, or their understanding of sustainability. And with other departments, it's a process, right? We have to work with them to help them understand the broad manner in which we approach sustainability. And sometimes we have to work with them one-on-one for quite a while, and we build their capacity and offer the technical assistance to them, and then identify opportunities where they can integrate and embed it within their own work. So,
that makes sense.
And some of it is also that we haven't successfully been able to work with every department yet, right? So it's it's a work in progress, constant.
Both and. I appreciate
Yes.
that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And my questions I have actually is, as we are still working on creating the Sustainability Commission, based on the referral I put forward a couple months ago, just would like to get off agenda report on the implementation timeline, when we will get that moving. That's only appreciated. On the fleet and the equipment electrification, and the plan to eliminate diesel, can you let us know what type of timing are we going to be able to move on that?
Absolutely, Supervisor Lee, and there is an off agenda in regards to Sustainability Commission. There is an off agenda forthcoming in the next couple of weeks, so we are in the process of preparing that.
Thank you.
With regards to fleet and the diesel one, we did complete a greening the fleet study as well, and I know David Worthington is on the line as well. What we really want to do is we're looking very holistically at the carbon neutrality plan for county operations, and fleet is one aspect of it. There's building electrification, but then there's other aspects of fleet, places where we use generators, we've got other heavy duty equipment. So we are looking at everything very holistically and want to bring that back to the board for consideration. And like I said, David knows this area way better than I do. There is a lot of it is dependent also on technology, what's available in the market right now. EV trucks are just starting to come out, but I believe there's a long wait list already. So many things are dependent on how the market operates as well.
Okay, great. And then the third question is regarding the Green Business Program. Are you seeing that the recertification numbers are down? Just want to see if any strategy we're planning to do to make it easier for people to recertify.
Absolutely. And I wanted to, the recertification looks lower, Supervisor Lee, because an organization gets recertified every 3 years. So it's not something that happens every year. So the numbers are going to vary based on which organization got certified in which year.
Right.
We did look at our numbers because we know you had reached out to us for this question. Typically, I would say we lose about 10% of the businesses from the recertification process. Unfortunately, sometimes they go out of business. A business might move, their staff changes, so it's not a priority for them. The other thing we've also noticed is when you get certified, you usually put the systems in place already. So a recertification is not going to really significantly make you reduce your cost of operations because you've already done that. And it's not like you've changed your practices in 3 years because those systems stay in place. There's multiple factors why someone may not get recertified, but we are really trying to expand this program and make it relevant for small businesses as well. That's one where we've struggled the most. And we're actually putting in some robust outreach mechanisms and play as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And that's all the questions I have. And
Absolutely.
Pat, we have a motion to accept the report.
So moved.
I now second it, and no further discussion. Please vote.
Vice Chairperson Chavez
Yes.
and Chairperson Lee.
Yes, thank you very much, Justine. and
Thank
Tanya.
you.
Appreciate it. Okay, and then the last item today, I believe, is item number 17, that was pulled by Supervisor Chavez,
Yes.
relating to the Fleet and Facilities Department on job order contracting. Yes, Supervisor Chavez, do you have any questions on this?
I just wanted to ask Dr. Draper, Jeff Draper, a question. Sorry. Jeff, I really appreciate the report, and I know this isn't, I think this was an annual report out, if I'm correct, or every 2 years, maybe?
No, yes, you're right. It is correct. It's about a year.
And one thing I wanted to ask, Jeff, is that the way I read the report, and I know what you talked to one of my staff, I was having a hard time understanding if what you were saying was leave it the same because you need more time, or you had concerns about the policy.
I think, Supervisor, that what we would recommend is that we bring forward actions for the board's consideration to advertise future job contracts with the goal of having best value being the first option, if you get my drift. So that way we have it all under the PLA. We all are all supporting of all that. And then if we don't get enough bidders, then we would broaden it up, if you will.
Oh, I see.
And the board would be able to approve that on a one-by-one basis. My concern is that we have a lot of work to do. And if we don't have the contract capacity to do it, it's going to slow down very critical projects. At the same time, I also have the same concern at the board that so far, even though we've only had a single entity get a lot of our contracts, that they're a good entity and they've been following the PLA, and we're all good with that. But we still need the contract capacity to move forward. And if you remember, the state statute says we have to have at least 3 bids.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't get 3 bids, we need to keep the project moving forward, if you get my drift. And we would just look for the flexibility. And we'll let the board decide on a bid by bid basis whether that's allowed.
Thank you. That's actually very helpful. I appreciate it. I would move approval that we've received the report, and I'll and Jeff, I'll think a little bit about that and then circle back with you. That's super helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I will second it. Thank you, Mr. Draper. And is there any public would like to speak on this item?
We do have one comment, sir.
Sure, please go ahead.
Thank you. Our first speaker is Urvish Kumar Mehta. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Yes, 3 minutes or as soon as you can finish. We don't have to use up all 3. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate that. I wanted to thank the Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Orderly, and Supervisors Chavez with regards to pick, highlight, particularly item number 13 about the government fellowship program. It is important that we recognize that how the county, state are implementing the international relations, having the international commission, sister to sister community commissions are being built within the county of Santa Clara, which allows the county not just to prosper, however, also to introduce the county as a whole and as an entire judicial, public, and as well as legislative system body to another city, and where they be able to introduce a program. I want to give an example about the India's Gandhi Ashram Gandhi Heritage Program. This program directly works with the government in order to introduce the fellowships and also work with the embassy in order to provide the fellowship to a different international students, which allows them to stay for 3 months and complete the heritage study on the American and Indian history and political science. I also wanted to emphasize on Israel's historical program as well, which provides the government fellowship and internship, and also a compensation for the fly, for a one-way fly to the respective location in order to study the Israel's history and as well as law within the system. Such fellowship programs and signing the memorandum of understanding with the county to county and county to country relationship also expand the scope of that, how the county performs the exercises, judicial system exercises, legislative system exercises, and executive administration exercises with the different countries, and as well as allow the different fellows within their own system body to interact with at the international level and allow them to work as a fellows. Also, I wanted to emphasize on Fulbright Fellowship Program that is introduced by the United States of America. The Fulbright Fellowship Programs allows the student from different countries to interact with the United States of American system, the judicial, legislative, and the executive system, to introduce the fellows and also to learn about the American history and as well as the law. Now, this fellowship program and assigning a funding to it also allow the government and finance operations to prosper the different system and as well as benefit themselves from how different judicial system and public system works accordingly. So I wanted to thank Board of Supervisors for allocating the funding for that, and also emphasizing on that, how two democracies and two countries, different system interact with each other and allow the fellows to prosper. Thank you very much.
That concludes our request to speak.
I will close the public hearing and let's take a vote.
Vice Chairperson Chavez,
Yes.
Chairperson Lee.
Yes, as well. And then we move to adjourn the FGOC meeting to Thursday, April 21st at 2 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Recording stopped.